Today we're going to be starting off with mini project number 1, and this is the basic situation. We're working with a string from a company that sells various metal shapes. The string flat indicates that the shape is a flat bar, basically a rectangular bar that is solid with a cross section that is a rectangle. 1/8 means that it has a thickness of 1/8 of an inch, and the 1-1/2 means that it has a width of 1.5 inches. Length is the last entry in the inventory that is 16, and it's actually 16 feet, not inches, so it would need to be converted. What we did here is I started out with an R notebook that I'll probably continue for the other projects as well. And in an R notebook you have these code sections that you can put more of in here, and when you run it, it has the output here, which can also be shown in your R notebook online as an HTML document. So for our code here, we're starting out with creating the vector string inventory, and you can use equals here, or you can use this notation. Either one is exactly the same. And we're concatenating these particular strings of characters together. Note that there's spaces involved, and there are X's, which of course you know is length by width by height and that sort of a thing. And then we've got HR and flat and CS. I'm not sure what the HR and CS indicate, but the word flat indicates that it's a flat bar. To be able to check in the inventory if this particular one is a flat bar, you use grepl, and what you do here is you first have to enter in what you are looking for, and then afterwards you indicate where you're going to look for it. So I'm looking for it here in this inventory. And so this is going to find the word flat in the vector string, and it outputs either a true or a false. True means that it found that word there. False means that it did not find that word there. Now, let's say we want to change this to FLAT, like that. Let's see what happens when we run it. It's giving us false. The reason why is because this is case sensitive. So let's say in your inventory you don't have a guarantee that all of these will be capitalized. What you need to do in that case is after where you're looking for it, you need to also include ignore the case equals true. And now let's see what happens. It comes back with true. So no matter what case, uppercase or lowercase, if I have the FLAT, then it's going to find it if we're ignoring the case. So the next thing that we're going to do, now that we know that it is a flat bar, let's say we want to know the dimensions of it. So what I could do here is I could get rid of this, this word thickness and just have it output the 1/8. But what I would rather do is I would rather put in the word thickness by giving it a variable name. I can then call it later in my code and use it again. And I really like to give things names so that I can use it later on in my code if I want to. So here, for the thickness, I'm going to use gsub, and notice that here for my X, I am putting a space right before it. So this is, the X is going to be removed, including everything after it. And it's removing it from inventory. And when I say removing it, basically we're just taking that out and replacing it with nothing. So by replacing it with nothing, that removes it completely. So let's say, let's get rid of this thickness again so you can see what happens whenever I do not have that space there. So if I play this here, notice that this space is output right here. If I don't want that space to be output, then I want to put it here. So the first time that you see a space and then an X and then a bunch of stuff after it, I'm removing all of that, and the only thing we should be left with is this 1/8 with no spaces. So notice that now we have just the 1/8 with no spaces. And I'm going to put this thickness label back in. Okay, so the next thing that we're doing, and you don't need to have this inventory repeated over and again, but I'm just putting that in there so that it looks very clean, and someone that's never seen it before will know, okay, here's problem 2, here's problem 3. So for this one, I'm creating a second inventory so that I can take some of it out, take what's left, and then take something out of what's left. So I start out with this original inventory string, and I want to use G sub, and I want to, this caret here says from the beginning of the string, I have no idea how many characters, and it can be anything, up to, this question mark indicates the first X with a space. So it's going to take out the 1/8 all the way to the X plus that space afterwards, and it's going to replace it with nothing. So inventory 2, if we want to go ahead and print the in-between so you can see what happened. Let's play this again here. So notice that I have the 1/8, the space, the X, and the space taken out. And so now I have this new string, which I'm calling inventory 2, and I'm going to take out the rest of this here on the right hand side of the 1/1/2. So let me get rid of that here. And of course here you can see that this width that's left over from here comes from this command line here. I'm using G sub again, and what I'm doing this time is I am going from the space and the first word. This slash, backslash, backslash, lowercase w means the first word, which means it's going to ignore numbers. Anything, however many times, to the end. Okay, the $sign is the end of the string. So everything here is getting taken out and replaced with nothing, and we're ignoring the case just in case there's things that are uppercase, lowercase. We just want to look for a word. And it's going to take out everything that's after the 1/2, including that space right before, and it's going to plug it in down here. In the third part, what I'm going to have to do is convert feet into inches. Taking out everything before the 16 is fairly simple. You just remove everything before the X, including the X, and then of course I've got this little space here to get rid of that space that's right before the 16. And I'm replacing with nothing, so it's removing it completely. And then what this does right here, I'm labeling that, of course, length feet, and I'm doing this command called as.numeric. It's going to look at this output for length feet, and it's going to change it into a number. So what this number is, we know is 16. So it's taking that and I'm multiplying it times 12 to convert it into inches. And of course, I'm giving that label length IN for length inches. Now, if I go in between here and I say 16 times 12, just to check here, of course, that's 192, 192, we're good. It did the calculations correctly. Now, this here called cat, what it does is it takes everything that's inside the parentheses after it, and it concatenates it into printed strings. So this is going to take this string here and then put a space and put in whatever this thickness was. And then I added in here a new line so that it knows, okay, I want to print a new line now. And then the width of the flat bar is, and then you put in whatever that variable is, new line, the length of the flat bar is, and I made sure to put the length in inches. And then I added a new line with a little note that the measurements are in inches. So it prints it in a really user-friendly manner, so that the non-programming people of the company can be able to use it as well. So if I run the code, notice that my output is true because it is a flat bar, and then it prints out my concatenated strings with the correct measurements for all three. So that is extracting things from strings and doing things with it so that we can get information that we need. Thank you for listening.